again with Tyler Watkins and John Young for another week in review. How are you doing, John, after your trip to Crash and your competition at Crescendo?
Doing great, man. I was a little bit effed up the first couple of days after, but other than that, so we drove. So the competition ended Sunday at 6 p.m. ish Eastern, and we drove as soon as it was over, and it was about 14 hours back to Houston. So I got back at 7:30 ish, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a bad next like 30 hours, like as far as my body was going through. But I feel great now. Got back in the gym today for the first time. Like, actually did something. And yeah, back to I'll probably take another day easy and then back to training. But it was an amazing competition.
Yeah, I spoke with JR and obviously wrote the article about the teams that were kind of preparing for semifinals. And of course, all he said was, all I saw was the negative stuff, the stuff that I kind of messed up on. But then all the athletes were, oh man, that was great. Loved the competition, so I'm sure JR is just kind of seeing it from the organizer's perspective versus what really went on.
He never gives himself any kudos.
Well, there was one event in particular where the scoring was a little bit messed up, I will say. Happened to be our best event. No big deal. But yeah. The strength event had like 4 different parts, which was kind of cool. If your team, one of your athletes did a max strength pull-up, max weight pull-up. Another athlete did 3-minute AMRAP of 225 front squats. Another athlete did 3-rep max bench press. And then another athlete did like a strongman medley. But every single one of those was scored individually out of 25 points. And then instead of like seeing who was like in first or second after that and then giving them the scores allotted with what a normal event would be. So like we got second in that event and we got 90 points as far as how his scoring system was, but third place got 89 and fourth place got 87. So like we didn't make up very much ground on people, even though we had beaten a lot of people, because all of our guys did great in that one. It wasn't that, and Brian asked him to change it. He wouldn't change it. But other than that, I had no complaints. I thought everything went great. I thought the judges were great. I didn't hear any controversies. The co-ed division was definitely the division to be in as far as if you're going to compete. I think there's probably 3 teams that I think will make the games, and there's probably 2 to 3 teams after that I think have a shot to make the games. As far as competitiveness, how you want to boil that down, and then even the all male and all female divisions, like the top 3 teams in both of those, like our semifinal worthy athletes, I would say.
Yeah. Kenneth, Sarah, Chris, Renata, Bruce, thanks for joining. Tyler, we usually don't see, too many athletes hit competitions once the open starts. Usually Wadapalooza is the last thing. What kind of the whole topic of Crescendo was, how beneficial is it for these teams to kind of do an in-person competition as they're preparing for semifinals?
I mean, think about how long it is from quarterfinals to semifinals. I mean, it's forever, competitively speaking. And then, like, in a team event, you can, as an athlete in a team event, you can get away with doing, like, I would say probably 2 or 3 competitions, maybe 2 competitions between now and semifinals, right? Or quarterfinals and semifinals. So I think it's great that people are competing in between. I wish more people would do it. I think that JR's opening a gate to people starting to think about this. I think next year we will see more teams go to Crash in preps. It's like, I wanted to quote Adam Sandler from The Longest Yard, and I don't want to piss off any of the teams that were at Crash this weekend, but it's like, if I'm going in, I know I'm a top dog. It's like, preseason you play Appalachian State and get your feels good, and then you go into a real game against Georgia or something. You know what I mean? You
I'm,
don't want to
I'm the
go
Appalachian State.
in.
is what he's saying.
App State's
Yeah,
good now.
Yeah, I mean, but you think about the Open, right? For the teams, it's individual performances. You know, even the scores that maybe advance you to quarterfinals, they may not even be the athletes that are on your team. And then you get to quarterfinals, and yes, there is teamwork in that. But for these for a lot of the teams, it didn't really, just being fit athletes is probably good enough.
Yeah.
But semifinals, getting into that top 10, beyond, the absolute best, Provens, Invictus, teamwork's going to come down to it. And I think it was probably a smart move on the move fast, lift heavy teams to make it down there.
Yeah.
How were the workouts, John, from a coordination standpoint? How kind of different were those from, say, what you saw programmed for the team quarterfinals?
I think they were way more reminiscent of what we will see in semifinals. I think so. Like, for instance, there was one of the workouts was a relay of 64 heavy wall balls and 8 snatches, like a waterfall style, like stuff like that. They don't program that type of stuff in quarterfinals. Like quarterfinals is more like, let's just see who's fit, and if you're fit, then you'll make it. A lot of teams got to semifinals. A lot of stuff has been written about that already as far as the percentages. But like the way there was a lot of worm stuff. There was a lot of pegboard stuff. Like there was a pegboard event. There's just more odd objects. Like it's a very wide variety of things. It's not just limited to your, I would say, open equipment. Right. I think quarterfinals for all divisions is limited to in-gym equipment, right? Like that you would have in every single, really in your garage.
JR has wild stuff nobody else has too.
Where I would say a lot of his events was very reminiscent of, hey, we can play with everything. And I'm going to, there were 2 scored events. I know we'll talk about that later on, but there was an event where your time on like machines or doing burpees was a 50 scored event. And then your max worm lunges in distance was your other event. And they were both 50-point scores. So and I know we're about to talk about that I just think it was very more semifinal reminiscent. So when he says, I think it is a great tune-up for semifinals, I couldn't agree more. Because there was a lot of teamwork-oriented stuff. You can't just rely on your people being fitter than other people, and I don't think you can. I don't think you can train team. You can train team cohesion, but it's way different in a competition when you need to make adjustments on the fly. One person's hurting and they can't do it. What are we gonna do? Or synchronicity. You get a hard judge where everything has to be like to the letter, right? Like that stuff is trained in competition. Unless you're just the fittest people, right? You got the proven team, the mayhem team, unless you're just fitter than everybody. Like I feel like having competition experience, being able to train adjustments on the fly is really beneficial before you hit the big show.
Agreed.
Did you watch much the co-ed teams compete, or were you kind of resting for yourself?
You broke up there. Can you repeat it?
Were you able to go kind of watch those top teams on the floor, or were you taking that time and rather not really paying attention?
I would say half of the events. I didn't watch all the heats, but like the top heat, I watched. I would say half of the events, not all the way through, but just to see what was going on, who was winning, who was tearing people up, and who wasn't. Just stuff like that.
Yeah. Did you see any communication issues or things where it's obvious that they had some work to do? Both of those move fast, lift heavy teams are new. Some have some athletes from last year, but for the most part, the second team all new.
Yeah, so they were all pretty good. They none of them were looking like they were struggling like a ton. All the communication was good. It was teams. I would say once you get back after the top 5, those were the teams that had trouble. Like say somebody's got too much worm on their shoulder and they can't hold it, and like you get a bunch of no reps. I wasn't there for the clean and jerk worm reps, so like I know those reps could have been off. Right, like that's a big team-oriented thing.
Right.
So, and I didn't see that one, but the one that I saw where they were lunging with the worm, everybody, all the top dogs seemed to be right in line
Cruising.
with each other. I mean, they were in line with each other. There was no miscommunication. It was just the best people were the best people, right? There wasn't their strategy was way better than the other team's strategy. It was just who's fitter.
Yeah. Tyler, one of the athletes on the Grit House team did injure it sounds like his shoulder now. How do you, I mean, is there concern though about going to some competition like this that's, it is very high level, right? It's not some local competition. JR is programming, top of the line workouts. And their season could have been over. Luckily, it sounds like it's fairly minor, but is that a concern for some of these teams that, especially the top end ones?
Sorry, I've been watching football movies, so have you seen the longest?
To give us another analogy?
Yeah, the not the longest yard. Friday Night Lights. Booby Miles gets hurt like 2 or 3 games into the season, and it's like, yeah, these things can happen. If I'm a coach or if I'm on the team, I'm going to be real honest about like, hey, I'm feeling beat up, but you can't help injury, and like some injuries are just random, so it's like that might happen. Is it worth it for you to go or not? If I'm a team, I don't know. I'm not averse to gambling ever, so I would go. But I mean, like, maybe tell your team going in, like, let's go 80%. Like, let's just hit a clean run on everything. Like, get really grooved in. We don't really care how we do here. We want to do well, and if we're in a chance to win, like maybe push it in. But like, just hit everything clean. Let's grease the groove. That's what
a tune-up is. You're not selling your soul every single workout. You're just trying to put a good hard effort in and work on your team cohesion.
Yep.
And honestly, if you're like, you could tear your bicep in any point of training. You're training for semifinals, right? You're going to do some intense freaking workouts. Like that could happen at any. Look at Ricky. I know he did it mountain biking, but he's not like, I wouldn't be afraid to do a competition because you're going to get hurt. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think people train harder than they do most competitions because competitions, you could have a 2-minute workout and then you got a 5-hour rest. Like,
and they're training harder right now because they're going into semifinals. They may not have planned on going to crash super early. And so it's like, maybe they didn't peak themselves or prep themselves to have this in this part of their training. I think in the future, as teams use this as an outlet to, sort of grease the groove, they'll plan for that in their training. Like, hey, we don't need to be as beat up going into this competition. Let's hit it good, feel good, come back home, recover, and then like hammer it again and then go into semifinals.
Yeah. I think overall, I think this is a great addition to the season. I mean, hopefully we'll see more teams take advantage of that. Maybe there's something on the West Coast at some point. Somebody in Europe should probably consider hosting one of these things because I think it would definitely be beneficial for these teams, especially the ones that are on the cusp of, in that probably 7th to 15th place range. They can definitely make some big improvements there. Let's move on to, we'll go back to 8 group quarterfinals and Joe Scali. Last Friday, he kind of messaged me and said, did you see, I'm now outside of the top 30, and shared the video. I went live last Friday, kind of showing that. Hiller did another video on it, kind of showing, why this is a problem, right? I mean, Scali's penalized. You look at Rich Froning didn't follow by holding, putting his thumb around the bar on a bench press. He doesn't get penalized. What's your thought, Tyler, on first, should Scali have been penalized, given that the barbell really ended up back in the same place?
Yes.
Okay.
If you're going to make a hard and fast, if you're going to make a rule, hold to it. Is it a good rule? I don't know. but they made the rules, so hold to it. I'm more upset, and I hate that this is going to come out of my mouth, but that Rich didn't get penalized and that like Roman didn't get penalized. We've been over this.
Cooking.
Huh?
I said home cooking.
Yeah. Well, everywhere's home for Rich when you're the freaking king. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I like that they did it, but so it's like they should have applied it broadly, and they didn't do that, and that's what I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can, like I said, we can talk about if the rule is a good rule. I don't know. There probably needs to be. I was thinking about this. There needs to be something to where it's like, did this help the athlete? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, did it help for Rich? Maybe a little.
And you can make a decision on. You can make a call on that. There's nowhere like you can just say headquarters will make a call on if they think it helped the athlete or not help the athlete.
Right.
You know, you turn Roman's rower on, that helps the athlete by a couple seconds.
Yes.
It does. It does. Right? Moving that barbell, I bet he didn't even know it happened. Like, that doesn't help him at all. Right? Rich, you probably could just make you could probably go either way on that. It is a rule. He should get penalized. But I mean, nobody is helping him. Right? He's just not doing it to what they told him to do it. So you could probably go either way if you really didn't want to penalize Rich, because I know we're deathly afraid of that. You know, you go either way on that one. But you should have something in the rule book saying we are allowed to make a call on if this helped the athlete or not, and that will lead to a penalty or not a penalty.
I think that call needs to be like written down. It needs to be firm. Like, what are your criteria? I think it needs to have criteria, but I don't disagree with you.
Because Joe Scali got gypped. Like, this is bad. It's bad. Like, he got seriously robbed. And there's no other way to put that. If Rich does not get penalized and he gets penalized for that. Like, I'm in the camp. I don't care if he gets penalized or not. It just needs to be consistent.
That's the thing. And so it's like, I think what would be stand up is if Scali was like, I deserved that penalty. But what we're not talking about is the other people who deserved penalties too. That's not cool.
Which he did bring up. I think he was. I mean, I don't know if he shared it with just me, but I mean, it was the inconsistency that he was upset about.
Right.
You know, I think he wasn't in favor of the penalty itself because, again, it wasn't anybody from his camp. It was a member that just kind of went over there to, you know, keep the barbell from rolling into his rower.
Imagine being
based on how
that
I mean,
right
the fact that he had to kind of keep them blurred out or, you know, covered up so that, you know, I'm sure that member feels terrible, especially right now. But
you weren't going to make the games anyway. Calm down. just
just lean into it.
Yeah,
it's fine, man. You weren't going to make it.
Yeah, I think it's you know, because I obviously reported on the Roman Krenikov thing, and it was called a nothing burger. I stood by that. Should have been a penalty. I don't want people to think that I think that Roman should have been penalized. Joe shouldn't have, even though they both broke the rules. I think the problem is one was penalized, one was not. You have other instances where they weren't penalized as well. We don't know how some of the other penalties happen because we get a one sentence blip that's not clear enough to know what they actually did with the rules. So I don't know what the right solution is. One of my thoughts is CrossFit getting too detailed, right? In their rules and their descriptions and all of these things. Like, why are we describing how a bar has to be held on a bench press, how far away a barbell needs to be from a rower? Are these things that need to be addressed as part of the competition, John?
I thought I was go ahead, John.
Yeah.
I mean, I said this last podcast we had. I think everybody's way too picky about it. I think in general, you know what's good reps and what's not good reps. I don't think anything should be. We should just leave it at that.
I think we know what
I think everybody. You know, I don't think there should be a rule about the rower at all. I think if some people are not smart enough to have the other person reset it for them, then that's their bad. You know, I don't think we should have the rower 8 feet away from the equipment. If you're good enough, you can put the rower under a pull-up bar and do pull-ups and then sit on the rower real quick. You should be able to do that, right? I think the people who are smart enough to hold small transitions should be rewarded for that. I think we're way too nitpicky with the rules. And then if you want to be nitpicky with the rules, that's fine. But then you have to be consistent across the board. If you're not consistent, then people get robbed, and there's people who get a free ride. Like and you pick those people, and that's messed up.
Right. Yeah, Tyler.
I was trying to come at this from Rich's point of view. Like, he didn't wrap his thumbs, whether he knew it or not. He went with it, and then like people started calling him out, and he didn't own up to it. Okay, to me, and I was thinking about this during training. I was like, it is the athlete's what's the word I'm looking for? It's the athlete's prerogative to ride the line as close as they can, always, right? And if they get away with something, good on them, right? You are a professional sport when you catch those athletes doing that and you penalize them. I think that this actually might be one of the keystones in us being a professional sport, is that we feel like penalties are being handed out correctly, and they're always being handed out. I would say, to John's point about like we're being super nitpicky, I mean, back in 2013, you didn't have to there was no schematic of how you had to lay things out. It was just like, film your workout and let it be that way. I mean, and you would have people like their freaking rower would be right underneath a pull-up bar, and they would like jump straight up and, laying back down on their, rower and that stuff. And it's like, to me, if you want to go that crazy with it, go that crazy with it. I mean, like,
you know what you have to be to do that? Freaking fit.
Right.
Like, if you shorten your transitions,
you take all your transitions.
You're never resting. Like you're just never resting, right? And like, if you're fit enough to pull that off, I think you should be able to express that.
Yeah. I agree.
That burpee dude says John's wrong because it comes a game of transitions, which if you can go from movement to movement with no rest, good on you, right? I mean,
that's a programming issue. If the programming is such that the transitions matter, change the workout.
No, I don't think you have to change the workout. I think some workouts, the transitions need to be matter, because whoever can keep the transitions the tightest is the fittest person.
I never wanted it to be about that.
I don't like those workouts either. I'm not good at them. But like, but look,
whether I'm good at them or not,
Mal O'Brien wins all of those. She's very good at that type of stuff. But I think there are some workouts where whoever can keep that tight of transition for 20 minutes. Like, on those workouts, you can't make it. Those aren't the sprinty workouts. Those are the 20-minute workouts. Because if you can keep that for 20 minutes, you deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, that's one thing with the semifinals, and I know this is on an in-person competition versus online, but the way that even the games, right? They have things spread out so you can track it, but that changes what those transitions look like, and it changes the dynamic of instead of having stuff right on top of each other, like go do regional Nate, but then you have to go walk or jog, however many feet to the kettlebell. So it's and then back to the wall. So it changes the workout dramatically. And I'm just wondering, like, we're kind of self-imposing that to kind of, I think, maybe lead into the next topic of safety. I think that's kind of where CrossFit is trying to say it. It's for safety, right? You're far enough away from certain elements, you don't do something stupid and hurt yourself.
I'm not someone to have in this conversation, because to me, it's like, it's not my responsibility to make sure you don't hurt yourself. It's yours.
I agree with you. So let's move on to the next one. The PFAA, the Professional Fitness Athletes Association. Brent Fikowski was down in Georgia with Training Think Tank last week. He threw out a podcast, and if anybody hasn't watched it, I highly recommend going back and watching it. I think it's a 2-hour long podcast. Talks a lot about Brent's history and things before CrossFit and some of the good days back, 14, 15. and near the end of it, they do bring up the PFAA, and if you guys don't know, Brent does lead that organization with 8 other athletes, including Pat Vellner, who else? Lazar and Luka Dukic, Fee Sagaffi, Victoria Campos, Dina Swift, somebody else from South Africa, and then Royce Dunn. They've been around for what, 2 years now?
2 or 3. Yeah.
And they went into the talk of it, and what Brent said was that we're trying to start with things that would be universally agreed to by 99% of athletes, things that aren't controversial, like fairness and safety. Is that the right things to be focusing on for it's not a union, but some type of association that represents the athletes? Tyler?
To me, I think in the beginning, I had met Brent and talked to him because of Z-Score, and we ended up talking into, like, could I help him with PFAA and stuff like that, and his and I interests weren't really, like, I just am not interested in fixing the things that he wants to fix, but he's worried about consistency as an athlete, and I think that's fair. I like the direction, like, for what he wants to accomplish. I like the direction he's going. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't want to get overly safe. I don't love, bubble wrapping everything and, nerfing everything. But to a certain degree, like, I don't really love that they have regulations on certain types of belts and stuff like that. But whatever. Okay, fine. Write it down. But, like, with the movement stuff that he was talking about, if people go watch that, I liked that sort of thing where it's like, hey, you have standard style of burpee. This is the criteria for that burpee. And then it's like, if you want to change it, there's a different criteria for that one. We have a log book of standards you use on types of burpees and types of handstand push-ups and different things like that. I actually thought that was a great idea. And if you wanted to do something different, you needed to produce the same set of criteria for a different movement. Like, hey, these are the standards. This needs to have its own standards and its own, like, little sheet of paper on, like, this is what this needs to be acceptable. I like that. That would be a hell of an undertaking considering how many movements we have.
Very true. Very true. John, what are your thoughts on focusing on fairness and safety?
What does he mean by that?
I think, my guess is that, and the way I'm reading into it is, a lot of these things that we see in the online portion of the competition, of things being spread out and a certain distance away from each other, is coming from that. And I could be wrong, but he talks about rig safety and like where the rings are in that podcast, and if somebody's jumping down from the rings onto a rower, or they have a barbell right next to it, obviously you look back years ago and Kevin Ogar, missed the snatch behind him, and next thing you know, he's paralyzed from the waist down. So, like, there is some rationale into that, but should that be what this Players Association is doing?
I don't think that's for me to say. As far as
you're part of it, right? Like,
yeah,
you're one of the athletes.
Yeah. As far as fairness goes, 100%. I think everybody wants consistent judging, consistent penalties around the board, consistent video process. Everybody should be playing on the same field, and everybody should have an appeals process, blah, 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 all that stuff, like in competition. I 100% am on that board. Safety, I could not care less. Kevin Ogar's situation, nobody told you to put weights behind him. That's why that happened. It wasn't because things weren't spread out. It was because there's weights behind him. Like, yeah, I guarantee you, and it kind of contradicts himself, because if you say we're doing stuff that 99% of the athletes agree on, I bet if we polled all the CrossFit Games athletes, is it a big deal for you that the stuff is spread out? Like, does that mean a lot to you? Do you want that? I guarantee you 90% of them could not care less. They're just going to operate on whatever rules are given to them to the best of their ability. and they're hoping headquarters doesn't screw them out. Like, that's what I bet most of them feel like. That's how I would feel like. But I've never been hurt because stuff wasn't spread out. I've never like, I agree with Tyler. I think it's your responsibility to make sure you don't hurt yourself. It's not the sport's responsibility. I'm never going to tell 70-year-old Reba to snatch 225 whenever she can't do it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to tell that person to do ring muscle ups. Like, that's a coach's responsibility, right? And that should come from headquarters. Safety should come from headquarters. The sport of CrossFit, if we're trying to be safe, it contradicts itself.
I'm not alleging that I want athletes doing like crazy ass stuff and that CrossFit is going to try to hurt athletes, but like, let's push this to like its crazy end. Okay. The Players Athlete Association gets together and they have like a real sort of union going, right? And then basically, if their athletes going to the games and I'm worried about safety, well, it's like, show me the workouts first, because I need to deem if this is safe enough for all the athletes in this union. And it's like, okay, now they have a control on programming. And it's like, do we want that? No, not really. We're talking a lot about safety. I'm not as concerned about safety. I mean, it shouldn't be egregious. And you should definitely, like, easy thing, maybe this is something that Brent could have handled. I'm sure he talked to Scott about this, but when Scott screwed his ankle up, that was an easy fix.
Okay. So like, I think when he's saying safety, it's more of stuff like that. When live competitions have things like that are an easy fix, that like they should be an easy fix. It should be fixed very quickly on the spot. But that's live competition. That is not the Open. That is not quarterfinals. That's not. I think you should have a tall guy bar just in case some 6'4" guy shows up.
Right.
I don't think it's hard for they did to say, hey.
And they did at the games with the bar muscle ups in the very Jackie at the very end, right? So they could do the bar muscle ups on that back bar.
And that's what I like.
Stuff like that.
That's what I like about what Brent is doing, is he's trying to get out and create, something proactively. Like, this DeLugos issue should have never been an issue. And I think that Brent had solutions for those issues before it ever happened. So it's just like, just listen to the guy, and create standards. If you think they're too constrictive, okay, I know that Brent will go back and forth with you about talking about how to get what he wants, but maybe easing up and finding a middle ground. Like, he would do that. So it's like, there's always going to be safety issues. Somebody in the comments talking about people running together tight. I mean, like, people do that in the Boston Marathon. Like, get over that. But
alpaca, that's where they were kind of pushing that sled and the kettlebells were on top of each other. I don't think it impacted the workout or be unsafe, but I think the bigger issue on that is the fairness when it comes to the lane differences. And now it's talked about in that same podcast.
Some ropes are slicker than others.
Yeah.
The ropes are slicker than the others. You had anytime you've had the sled push on the North Park, people have complained that one side was faster or stickier than the other. Different distances in the shoulder to overhead.
Some of that comes down to game day stuff. I mean, like, imagine the Reds playing the Pirates, and they're at Red Stadium, and they play a series there. And, it rained every day before, and the field's wet. And then they go to the Pirates Stadium, and it's like, well, it's dry every day. The Reds get mad because it's like, well, we played on a wet at our stadium. Now the field's dry. It's like, who gives a shit? Some of that stuff is just day of stuff. And it's just, you got to be an athlete. Does it suck? Yeah, but you got to overcome.
Yeah. When I think of a players union, you think about the NFL and things like that, and we just talk about the penalties. It doesn't feel like, or at least we're not seeing it on our end, of anybody from that organization or the DAC talking about these penalties and standing up and saying, we don't agree with this. And maybe that's the part that Brent doesn't want to get into, of 99% would not agree. But don't you think that's part of it, is when you talk about fairness, right? I'm really curious to know what their thoughts are, or should they be speaking up when athletes get penalized or not penalized when things come up.
The PFAA.
Yeah, I mean either that or the DAC that meets with CrossFit to publicly bring things
is
up.
a CrossFit committee.
It is, but it should any of those groups be bringing that up?
I know that what does the actual DAC stand for? Because I always call it Diverse Athlete Committee, but that's not what it is.
I don't know.
I can't remember.
Maybe somebody in the comments can help us.
You can't even. Don't say it if you don't know what it is.
It's all the division. It's the divisional athlete committee.
Is it?
That's what it is.
Direct athlete communication. That sounds great.
But yeah, they're like a CrossFit interior group. But
what's PFAA stand for?
Professional
Fitness Athletes Association. Yep.
Okay, good deal.
Rolls off the tongue very easily.
That was a test. But like the PFAA, man, could you imagine that undertaking, especially with what's going on with the divisional athletes? It's like having to handle. I mean, Brent would need a task force of at least 50 people to handle all the complaints. And then
he brought that up. I mean,
go ahead.
He did mention, and I think he said, I can't speak to what the teams or adaptive athletes need. Not even going to try with what the Masters does. So it's literally focusing on really the elite individual athletes. With I mean, obviously you can apply fairness and safety to that, but they're not looking at the specific topics of what Masters want or need or things like that, or the adaptive athletes. Definitely a hot topic right now. It's kind of a broad, generic scope at this point, in my opinion.
I'm gonna drop a bomb. It's like a John Young bomb, but is my opinion to handle all these things are getting out of control, and like really what the CrossFit Games is about is finding the fittest man and woman and maybe team on earth. No one really we love that these people get an opportunity and we want that to be an outlet, but maybe the CrossFit Games is not the right place. So I would let the Masters Fitness Collective handle all the Masters competitions. And I would let Wheelwad handle all the divisional athlete competitions. And I would let somebody else do the teams and let the games just be that. They don't do that because of ticket sales and all these other things. But I think that is actually the best proactive way to move forward, is offload these things and let people who are actually handling them better handle them.
I mean, I'm not against the games going doing two, the individual games is in August, maybe in May, the Masters Games is. You know what I mean? And you'd have a different semifinal date, but I don't think that'd be hard to change. And then you have a games for Masters athletes in May. And then, yeah, I don't know if you would do adaptive division. Their separate thing. That'd probably be wrapped up in the Masters as well. But just having two different competitions. Obviously, the games is going to be the games. But that way, the Masters people, we're crowning the fittest old people in the world.
Old people.
I know.
You know what I mean? And this is going to be in May 31st or July 1st, right? If anything, it'll be a tune-up for people. People would watch that. They would actually watch the Masters for once because there's nothing else going on. And then you have semifinals after that, and then the games.
I mean, I think Kenneth does bring up a good point, though. I mean, if you only have the individuals, you do have a lot of breaks. I mean, I don't disagree completely with the idea, but I do
see what you're saying.
Think maybe if they're all in Madison, but maybe you hand over the running of the Masters to, say, the Masters Fitness Collective.
They don't have to be in Madison either.
Well, I think the point of this is that, if you only put the top 40 athletes in the world and they do their event and then they don't have something for 3 hours, what do you do? Whereas if you have teams and Masters and stuff in there,
you chill out for a little bit.
I disagree. I think that you could have more community events where you could go watch speakers. Okay, we've got a 3-hour break between the teams and the individuals. There are these sets of things that people can go watch. Like go watch Jason Khalipa talk about whatever the hell he wants to talk about for 15 minutes. Like you can have, or, you know, some sort of activations where it's like people participate in things. It's like, we want to be a community event. I could fill that time up easily. And there are all kinds of people who would want to come sell their stuff and talk about it for 30 minutes and try to sell it to you, you know, you being a captive audience. Hell, no one pays attention to the DJs. It's like you could just have music people there. You could do all kinds of stuff.
You know, this is not the safest thing to do, but you could have a time where people could sign up to do the Capitol if they wanted to. Like you could have a CrossFit event if you want to sign up and try it. You could fill that gap with that time. People would watch regular people kill themselves.
They did have workouts at the games this year, and I've never. This year was my first year at the games, but they did have a place where you could actually go and train. Now it was always full, but yeah, I agree. Like that would be super easy to do. Like have a community.
And you're telling me Hiller
5K
would
or
jump
something
on the train and be like, "I'm going to take on Hiller in the Capitol." People would watch that.
That would be cool.
You know, I think so too. And like, and you know which events are going to be, you know, the events, right? You could schedule that ahead of time. Obviously you might have like a scaled down version, but you know, it'd be cool just to see somebody take on the real deal.
At least I don't think that John is ever not a little fired up.
I'm fired down, man.
Yeah.
I just got back from the gym, so my like testosterone's all jazzed up.
Yeah. Gabe from Paper Street, like the gauntlet at Wadapalooza. I mean, something like that, right? Like it's more community based. Let people do those workouts. Let them be on the field and try something. Something that would be different. It's something that's kind of an interesting thing to talk about. All right, we'll move on to the last topic. The age group semifinals are coming up next week. They released some information on it earlier. There's going to be a password required for these, so you get the password for the first 2 workouts. And then the second 2 workouts the next day, but you'll know the tests on Monday ahead of time. So you have 3 days to kind of prepare for it. On top of that, there's 2 scoring tables, the standard 100-point, as well as a 50-point table, which implies some type of A/B test that may be more a smaller test, skill-based. First, John, do you like the password requirement at this stage of the competition, or do you like it in general?
Yeah, I mean, it just makes it less hard to cheat. I mean, I don't see a problem with it at all. I like looping your score or something. I don't know.
That has nothing. Well, okay, fine.
I don't know what it's for, but I don't mind it. Like it's not
that, and that's my question. Why are we doing the password?
They used to do that for like the liftoff, I think, the online liftoff. When they used to have that, they would do stuff like that. Qualifiers do that all the time. The MAC qualifier a couple years ago, and that was a semifinal or sanctional, whatever they called it then. You had to have a password. I don't mind it. It just makes sure you do stuff on the day that they want you to do it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what Jamie said. I mean, it's so you're done in a specific order, right? You saw the quarterfinals just happen, and athletes would do different workouts ahead of time because they knew it wasn't going to blow them up, and then they waited for, you know, the row workout or the GHD workout at the end as long as possible, because they knew if they did that when it was in order, the next workout would probably be a little bit tougher. So they kind of game the system. I think that's the intent, is force them to do.
I just don't think that it's that much of a problem, because you think about athletes like Noah and them did 4 workouts in the same day. And then they came in, I think they redid a few of them. And it's like they couldn't have done that had they do the password thing. And it's like, okay, now you're kind of.
Yeah, I like that though. I don't want them to do it.
I just want them to have one go.
Yeah.
Okay. Like if you're just like, if we asked Boz, why are you doing the password thing? And he said, I just want the athletes to do this one time. Okay, that's a good reason. But I don't know. I kind of like that athletes can redo. And if you want to take that gamble and put that stress on yourself, or you're fit enough to be able to handle that volume, that's what I like, is that like, hey, if you want to make that, that's fine. But if you want to just have them do their all in one go, okay, that's fine.
No, I don't have a problem with that either. Like, I agree with that. It really doesn't make any difference to me if they have it like that, where you can do 4 workouts in one day, and then you can see, where people are coming in at and redo whatever you want to redo. That's fine. But like, if you want to make sure athletes do it in this order, because like Brian said, that GHD workout's going to F you up. So if they make them do that GHD workout and then you have to do the last workout, all of a sudden you can't rope climb. If they want that, they want to see who can recover the best, then the password has to be enforced. But like, I don't mind having it that way. I don't mind having it the way you like it. I don't think it makes any difference. It's just whatever the competition wants at that point. And I don't care that they jump around. I don't think it's a big deal at all.
Yeah. It's fine. Like, either way, it's fine, I think. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
Yeah. Travis, thanks for joining. Make sure, guys, to go to vindicate.com, use code SPIN for 10% off.
He got on just to remind you to say that.
I guess the question I have is, like, why now in age group semifinals? Like, if this is important, why aren't they pushing it to
testing
quarterfinals?
Well, maybe it wasn't important for quarterfinals.
I mean, we just talked about it. I mean, it definitely is, right? I mean, the GHD workout was an impact.
But it's what Boz wants, though, is what I'm saying. Like, maybe he doesn't care for quarterfinals for that to be important. And then for age group, he wants it to be important. I think it's okay for him to want different things in different competitions.
Mm-hmm. I think he's just rolling it out. He also rolled out a lot of new stuff this year. And it's like, do you really want to add that on top? You kind of got to, you can't overseason the mixture there. Yeah. I wouldn't want to do too much. So,
yeah. As for the 50-point scoring table, do you guys have any guesses on what we might see as that type of event? Tyler?
It's just going to be skill dependent stuff, whether it's a lift and then a gymnastics movement or something like that. It's going to be skilled. So it's like, if you have I think they've done it in the past on like a sprint workout, like actual sprinting. Mm-hmm. I think that's right. And it's like,
you don't want the games.
Yeah. You don't want that to be a full statement of like, this is 100 points worth of your fitness, snapshot. It's important. Yes. But 50, I think it's neat. Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, we could take it down to the open. Like, it could be something simple as the first part of that shuttle run workout's 50 points, and then your thruster's 50 points. Or, it could be you're going to do a 1,000-meter row for time. At the 4-minute mark, you have to do this workout. You know what I mean? Like, how much do you want to kill yourself before you do this workout? And they're both worth 50 points.
See you, Brian.
Yeah. I would say Crash had a.
I don't know what happened there.
Go.
Kicked off. Crash had a fantastic event that was 50 points scored 2 different ways. It was 4 intervals, 4 minutes on, 2 minutes rest. You had to do 30 box jump overs and then 30 cals on the bike erg or the rower, and then max ring muscle ups in the remaining time. And so your amount of muscle ups were one score, and then the total time it took you to do the buy-in each time, like your average time was your or total time, that was your other score.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, a lot of times these 50-point things, when you see in other competitions, it's a max handstand hold. Something that's, if you mess up, you're not going to really lose a ton of points. In an online competition, I mean, if it is like a max handstand hold, how many times can you redo the workout? I mean, doesn't it seem a little odd that we might be seeing something like that at this stage?
I mean, I think that's only if it's a max handstand hold. Or even, I don't think if it's a 1,000-meter row, I don't think you're repeating that.
But if you do a max lift and a max handstand hold, I guess it depends on how they structure it. But you can just redo that over and over again until you hit your lift, right? Like you're already warmed up. Now you just say, here's my password, here's my weight, I'm going to go. And then you lift, get your lift, and then you go do your handstand hold.
Yeah. I mean, for that day, I mean, I'm only doing, twice at most. If it's a max lift, I can't just keep doing that.
Yeah.
Handstand hold, I can keep doing. But,
right.
Depends what it's paired with. And if you want to do it twice, go ahead. If you want to do it 3 times before the other workouts, which is why the password thing matters, like you're kind of screwing yourself. You know what I mean? Because you're effing yourself up before the rest of the competition.
Where you get into trouble is when, like, say they do a snatch, like in some workout, and it's like it progresses and it's some heavier snatch at the end of the workout, and so you're saying we really care, and you give it 100 points. It's out of 100 points, and you really care. You're saying we really care about the snatch, and then you follow it up with there's a handstand hold for, max, and it's only worth 50 points. What you're saying is we think that it's more important to be good at snatch than it is at handstand hold, and it's like that's not very fair. And so it's like you start opening yourself up for that conversation. It's like, okay, so, and I know that this is, some stuff that people were kind of upset about is like in the programming this year, Boz still sort of biased towards strength and not gymnastics. And it's like, he's going to open himself up to that argument again with the scoring system like this. And I bet he does it at semifinals. I have a feeling that's going to happen at semifinals too. So we'll see. I hope he employs it well. Because you could do it and it not be a big deal, but you could do it and it's going to piss a lot of people off.
Yeah. I think I do hope that it is a type of workout that you can't just keep repeating, right? If it is just the handstand hold, you just have people just trying over and over and over again until they get their one max, and they've gotten 5-6 attempts throughout the day. So it'll be interesting to see how he does that. And we'll have 2 days next week to kind of see where those athletes shake out. We talked about it last week. Only 10 make it, even though there's some pretty solid athletes in that 35, the 39 age group. So
that's
any
another
last
reason.
Thoughts? Yeah.
That's
any last thoughts, John?
No.
Yep.
Nope.
Tyler, before we wrap it up, anything last you wanted to say?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is that's another reason Masters Fitness Collective should just do the Masters Games, because they're going to do it the better way, which is more than 10 athletes. But anyway, that's it.
And I think CrossFit should allow them to call themselves like the CrossFit Games Masters or whatever. I think they should be allowed to use the word CrossFit, not just Masters Fitness Collective.
Collective.
Well, whatever you want to call it, but like it should be deemed as, the fittest 35 to 39-year-old in the world. It should be able to be called that, not some we're functional fitness. We're not CrossFit. I don't want it to be dancing around that.
I thought of this looking at the comments. Professional Fictional Athletes Association, because we're all just pretending.
Yeah.
What was your favorite workout that you've both done this week?
Favorite
I haven't
workout
really worked out until this weekend.
Yeah. Well, okay. You can pick one from this weekend then.
So I did one. It was a street parking workout, and it was the vault workout. I don't know if anybody follows that, but it was a 6-minute AMRAP of 30 dumbbell deadlifts, 30 squats, dumbbell squats, and then max reps, double dumbbells, and then the remaining time of that 6 minutes, max squat cleans. Rest 4 minutes, and then do it reverse for time. So if you got 30, squat cleans, you rest 4 minutes, then you do 30 of those, 30 squats, 30 deadlifts.
Did you cheat them?
So
during the hang squat clean, or during the squat cleans, did you kind of like curl under it?
Yeah, they're not the best looking squat cleans.
No, I mean, I would cheat them the whole time.
Yeah, it did blow up your lower back, and
they're not the best looking squat. The way he said that.
Yeah. No, after doing the squats, those squat cleans kind of snuck up on you, and you couldn't wait for that 6 minutes to end. So, how about you, Tyler? John's not done anything. He's just been driving back to Houston.
Driving to Houston for time. This is your favorite.
I could say a couple though. My favorite one from Crash was probably that ring muscle up workout I already said, but there was one that I really enjoyed just because I was good at it, and I was surprised other people weren't good at it. So you had 400 yards. You had to push this sled, and the sled was 270. It was 645s. Like I push it, and then one of my teammates pushes it, and then I push it, and you got to go to 400 yards. I didn't think anything of this. I don't really practice pushing sleds. I just assumed that I can do it. And then once you're done with the sled, it's 200 handstand push-ups. 2 of your guys has to do strict handstand push-ups. The other 2 has to do kipping with a 4-inch deficit.
Did you do strict?
Yeah, I was our restricted guy. Our other guy that was with me was one of our worst handstand push-uppers. We put our 2 best handstand push-uppers on different sides so we could, gather handstand push-ups with both of us. Turns out this sled was really bad. And it took us 10 minutes to finish the 400-yard sled, and we were the first people off the sled. So everybody else was just like, can't move it. And like I'm pushing it, and like I stop kind of like 3/4 of the way, take a little break, and then I push it again. I make it through my 5. We're good. The rest of our team, we got a couple 6'3" guys, so they're great. So like we were great at this sled, and nobody else was. It was really shocking.
Were all your guys on the team a little heavier?
Everybody except one. We had one little ninja freak. His name is Nikita. Nikita Katzman. He works out at Brian's gym. So
mass moves mass, bro.
He did great though. But yeah, those other 2 guys, they were like 6'2", not good at handstand push-ups, but they were good at that sled. So that's all that mattered. And then we got second in that workout. The team that beat us, we got first place in everything. So they were all semifinal guys. Like they're just better. But we got second. So very proud of our efforts. The other one I want to say was the run. There was a trail run. It was 3.2 miles. Do y'all know who Allison Stahl is?
Yeah.
I feel like I know that name, but I feel like I know every name now.
Okay, regional athlete. I don't know if she's been on teams for the games, but she's freaking jacked. If you ever see her, like you're like, like you'll double take a look at her because man, she is jacked. Anyway, she was running. I had no idea who she was. But, like, she was running fast, and I was like, I'm going to stay with this woman. I don't know why, but I was going to sell my soul to stay with this woman. And at about the last mile, she took off, and I couldn't stay with her. I was done. But did she
have a weight vest on?
No, she didn't. No, she didn't have a weight vest.
Okay.
Yeah, right. No. I picked people that were on my, and I finished that. And my pace was a 7:57 mile pace for 3.2 miles, which would have been a PR 5K for me. I was so proud of myself, killed myself. I know it's not impressive, but for me, I was very happy. And I didn't know I was running with that kind of a caliber of an athlete either. I mean, I'm sure running's not her cup of tea, but still, she's fitter than I am. And I was able to hold on with her for about a little over 2 miles. So I was happy with that. That was probably the one I was most proud of. Yeah, that's mine.
All right, you gotta answer your own question there, Tyler.
I did a 6-round workout today. It was a lot of fun. It was six rounds of 10 deadlifts at 275, 10 cow ski, 10 dumbbell snatches, and then it was rest 2 minutes and repeat it. And so basically it was long enough that you just had to sprint the entire thing. And it's funny because if you listen to that podcast with Brent, like he talks about like sort of being able to hurt a lot. And I feel like as an athlete, that might be what I'm worst at is like, I get to a 7 and I'm like, yep, just hold her here. But like when, and it's aggravating because like when I was like 19 doing CrossFit, like I would just like as fast as I could, as hard as I could into a wall and just be like, damn, that sucked. But now it's like I'm 31 and it's like, oh man, I can't, it's like I know what's coming. So I pull up. And so I've been trying to hurt myself here lately. Like I just want to, so like on the ski, like I was pulling like 1800 calories per hour or whatever. And it's like, usually I would pull like 14 or 15. You know,
Roman would laugh at that, but
yeah. But like I really try to, I've been trying to do that. And so that one, it was good today because I was like trying to go there.
I think that mindset has changed over the years. I mean, 10 years ago, there was no such thing as pacing, and you saw it. I mean, you even saw it in the competitive side of the games. Like nobody could pace. And nowadays it's, you have to pace. You can't go out too hot. I think it kind of leads to that notion of I'm just going to get to a 7 and stay there because I don't want to red line and get to a 9 or a 10 and have another round or two left and crash. But we never trained that then either.
Right.
So,
and that's what I didn't like about Dave's programming is it sort of incentivized that sort of thing where it was like you need to kind of go out and at like an 8 and then just hold on versus like just go out at a 10 and fucking figure it out.
Yep.
So yeah, that was my
some workouts. You need to blow yourself up though, just to see how you can recover.
Oh, you definitely do. I think, but most of the time, I mean, myself included, you never push yourself to that level where you've pushed too hard and come to regret that. Pacing is definitely the focus a lot of times.
I need more like 3 hours of not going hard and just staying 3 hours is what I need. So I can't relate to that, but I have to get used to doing easy stuff.
I come from an endurance running background, so that's more.
Were you a runner?
Up through high school, I quit in college, but
what was your event?
Yeah, I did cross country and then the mile and 2 mile.
Oh, now I'm embarrassed to say my run. I was so proud of it. You're probably just laughing.
Yeah, we won't go into that. Yes, I would have beaten you. But it's all right. It's all good.
That's not
you would
saying
have crushed
much.
me on. You would have crushed me on any other the weightlifting pieces. So we're even. All right, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks again for joining. Everyone else, thanks. So we'll talk to you guys hopefully next week.
Dave.
Yes, sir.